My name is Philippe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. I'm in Rio, the cultural and tourist capital of Brazil. With its 6 million inhabitants, Rio is the country's second most populous city. It's situated in the southeastern part of Brazil, at the entrance of the vast Guanabara Bay. With its carnival, white sand beaches, and granite peaks, Rio is a colorful, vibrant city marked by the dynamic nature of its inhabitants. But beyond this picture postcard image, Rio is also the favelas, the informal districts constructed illegally on the city's hillsides, which are home to almost 20% of the population. Long associated with violence and drug trafficking in the 1990s, the favelas benefited massively from large investments made by the municipality. Since then, some of them have shown clear signs of change, with improvements to infrastructures, the development of social services, and an opening up to tourism. I want to avoid the cliches about the squalid state of the favelas and find out how their inhabitants are participating in the reinvention of their lifestyles. Providencia is Rio's oldest favela. It began in 1897 after the War of Canudos, when soldiers waiting for official housing were given permission to set up temporary homes on the hillside overlooking the port. Today, 7,000 people are believed to live there. To get there, I take a moto taxi, the most practical way of navigating the winding roads which lead to Providencia. On entering the favela, I discover narrow streets and houses pretty much sitting one on top of the other. Barrocos in simple materials like wood and corrugated iron, but also more classic houses such as Giselle's. This 41-year-old woman is happy to live in Providencia and is very active in the local community. Giselle.
Hello, Philippe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Let me show you my home.
Fantastic. Thanks. I like this red wall. Have you lived in this house for long?
I've lived here for 22 years. But when I moved in, the walls were all green, and it was all dark inside. This room didn't have electricity, so I had to put in a makeshift extension. There was also a drainage problem. I had to change all the pipes. I've made lots of little improvements all over the place.
You must have worked hard to bring some comfort into a house that was pretty basic when you got here.
In the favelas, people improved their homes gradually. That's what I started doing when I moved in here. The house wasn't adapted for a child to live in, so I had to make a few changes. That's what all the residents do. But there's also the problem of getting the material up here. It takes a lot of time and effort, but everyone does it to change things and to make improvements. At one point, I hated this place so much I wanted to leave. But in the end, I decided to stay and build an upper level. It's normal for people to make their homes bigger. I'll show you the upstairs, but it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Philippe, this is the upper level. I'll show you the rooms. Here's the bedroom we're working on, with a bathroom.
Bathroom, a toilet, a shower. Wow, it's great. 2 bathrooms on this level.
I'm obsessed with bathrooms because as a kid we only had one and there were a lot of us. So I want every bedroom to have an ensuite bathroom. Then we can all leave our bedrooms already clean and dressed.
That does make life easier.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
And here's our terrace for sunbathing. Every favela house has to have a sunbathing terrace. With a shower.
Another shower.
Yes, we kind of turn it into a pool.
I see.
Otherwise, this wouldn't be a favela house.
The view's fantastic.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Is it complicated building a house like this?
It's very hard to build a house in a favela because you have to buy the materials outside. It's delivered to the bottom of the hill and you have to pay someone to get it up here. So financially, it's really tough. For each cubic meter of material, be it sand or stone, it's the same transport cost. It works out at half the price of the house. Plus, labor is very expensive too. That's why it takes such a long time to complete a favela house.
So is it still possible to build your dream home in a favela?
For sure. If you want it bad enough, and even if it takes 10 years, that's what it's taken me. But it's possible.
We'll get there eventually.
The favelas are a real maze. There are lots of deviations. You pass under the houses. The geography is pretty strange.
Providencia is a so-called pacified favela, where violence linked to drug trafficking is largely contained. But it still has its dangers, as were shown by the permanent presence of the somewhat badly viewed UPP, the pacifying police unit. To offer an alternative to drug trafficking, a number of Providencia's residents are banking on education and culture. This is the case of photographer Mauricio Hora, himself the son of a former drug dealer in the neighborhood.
Philippe, this is Maurizio.
Hello. The house up there is amazing.
This house is a work of art for the community, but it's open to the entire world. It's a residence where artists come to share their art, and they come to share their talent with the community.
I see.
So, Philippe, shall I give you a visit?
Up there? Great. In 2009, Mauricio, along with French artist JR, decided to create Casa Amarela, a cultural center open to all, and especially youngsters. With its giant moon floating above the house, this unique place sends out a positive image of Providencia. It all began with a photojournalism report carried out by Mauricio on the favela and the life of its residents to mark Providencia's 100th anniversary. It's beautiful. Just amazing.
This is one of the best views of the favelas.
I'm sure it is. Mauricio, was there a real need for a cultural center like this in Providencia?
The idea of turning this house into a work of art was really exciting. The intention was not to attract tourists, but to give our youngsters various means to interact with the rest of Rio by teaching them photography, theater, filmmaking. The idea was to make the house a true cultural center for the youngsters of Providencia.
Mauricio saw his project through, but not without pressure from the municipality and from drug traffickers. In the favela, any kind of transformation demands personal investment, and it sometimes has its risks. What you did was very brave. It couldn't have been easy.
I risked my life. I was threatened several times. Family members, friends, and people involved with drug trafficking told me, "There's talk on the street about you. You need to be careful." Sure, I was scared, but I was so committed, there was no turning back. I knew that if I quit, it'd be a step backwards for the community. Social policies aim to get youngsters to leave the favelas, but I don't believe in that. I think they simply need to learn how to transform the community on the inside.
This place is totally crazy. The view is awesome. From the heights of Providencia, I can see how much the favelas are an integral part of Rio. I am also struck by their extreme density. The inhabitants of the favelas are confronted by intense overcrowding. Rio's population explosion since the 1950s means that today there's a severe lack of official housing. Tavares Bastos, some 25 kilometers from Providencia, is one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Rio. To get there, I take a minibus. The residents of the favelas have access to this inexpensive means of transport to travel between the different districts of the city. Tavares Bastos is a particularly safe favela. Here, despite the lack of land available for construction, each resident has managed to find a corner to live in. I meet Jose Luis, who has been building his house for the past 20 years. Hello. How are you?
Good. And you?
Great, thanks.
Good.
The favelas are officially no construction zones, but here we have a 4-story building. It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
There are construction standards. I draw all the plans myself, trying to find the best way to use the available space. As the houses are all stuck together, they support one another. That's how they remain standing, because the foundations literally float on the ground. We don't ask for authorizations from the city. Otherwise, we'd have to submit proper plans, apply for construction permits, and pay taxes. Here, you simply draw up the plans yourself. You decide everything on your own.
The priority for people is obviously to construct all these houses lined up side by side, but that doesn't leave a lot of room in the streets for circulation.
Before, the van that delivered milk went right to the end of the favela. There was enough room for it to get through. But bit by bit, each inhabitant extended their home a few centimeters, and then a few more, and then a few more. And the space became more constricted. I can tell you, in some places, you pass each other on the street with your backs to the wall. Like this, completely sideways. People think that because so-and-so has extended his house, they can too. And why not? Some passageways are only 80 centimeters wide.
With its small houses piled up on top of each other, Tavares Bastos has an obvious lack of streets and squares where people can gather. A small football field, sunken into the surrounding buildings, is one of the few open spaces in the favela. It's Raimundo who maintains it and organizes the events it hosts. He is desperate to keep this community-based space going despite pressure from those who want to build on it. It's as if people pushed the walls aside.
Actually, it's the opposite. It's been a long process. People constructing their houses have gradually encroached right up to the edges of the rectangle.
I believe spaces like this are crucial because in the favelas, everyone seems to be preoccupied with housing and there's little thought given to public spaces.
You've raised an important question. The population is growing significantly. As the football field is one of the largest open spaces in the community, we hold religious services here, samba classes, football matches, conferences, and meetings. We use it to promote a whole host of activities, which benefit the entire community.
I think that the feeling of belonging you have for a neighborhood is less about images and symbols and more about spaces people can share together.
When you see millions of people pass through here, and they all recognize and appreciate the football field, it encourages me to maintain it. I'm really proud when visitors say our community is different because of it. I realize the importance of sharing things and passing them on to others. See, you're full of admiration about this place, and that helps keep me going. I want people from outside the favela to know that we all live in hope.
For a long time, the residents of the favelas could count only on themselves to improve their neighborhoods. Before the 1990s, many thought it was pointless to invest time, energy, and money in homes that were bound to disappear, either on their own or by forced evictions. But today, more and more people from outside of these neighborhoods are showing interest in them. Some architects are starting to see them as places to launch projects with a high potential. Pedro Evora is one of this generation of architects with a new vision of the favelas. He explains how this change in status came about.
Before, all elected politicians saw the favelas as places that shouldn't exist. But in the 1980s, several governments favoring the working classes started advocating the need to make buildings more permanent and to urbanize the favelas. For this, they called on town planners and technicians who were given the task of finding ways to endow these neighborhoods with an urban infrastructure.
But these so-called temporary homes are very much part of the city's identity.
What you say is very true, because Rio de Janeiro is well known for its favelas. The favelas are constructions in perpetual motion, and they're growing fast. If you look at the statistics, you can see they have the highest horizontal and vertical growth rate in the city. It's because there are more and more buildings being constructed in concrete, and that makes vertical growth possible when it was impossible with wooden structures.
What interests me about the favelas is the invention, the creativity of residents who have learned how to get by on their own. What interests you about them?
What interests me are the things that haven't been solved yet, the problems. I see my work as a possibility of coming up with solutions for difficult contexts. That's the role of the architect, I think. We need to get across problematic lines. I think that architects have now understood their importance in the process of articulating public space. But in private space too, the homes of the residents, there are also a lot of developments we could make. Here in Rio, we need to construct infrastructures to help accelerate the regularization of the favelas. The favelas are now our priority.
Vidigal is one favela that is starting to attract outside investors. Hugging the hillsides that overlook the chic Ipanema and Leblon beaches, in the past 10 years, Vidigal has become one of Rio's new hotspots. This popular haunt of artists is now seeing new residents moving in, looking to benefit from its exceptional location. Gwendel, an artist, decorator, and actor, was born and raised here. He speaks to me about the changes in his neighborhood. Gwendel.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So this is your studio?
Yes, this is where I do all of my craft work. Set design, carpentry, and making various objects and musical instruments. I make everything in here. It's a bit of a pigsty, but it suits me just fine. I live upstairs. My home is right above. How about I show you around?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's really big.
It's awesome. You like it?
It's wonderful, brilliantly decorated.
And here's the view over Vidigal.
What a magnificent view. Who are the people who have moved into Vidigal? And those who keep moving in today?
Most of them are people who've always been curious about belonging to a community, but have always been scared of the violence, and there's a fair amount of that. It's mostly artists and bohemian chic who make up these new curious people. And since the pacification of the favelas, they're much keener to move into Vidigal. The inhabitants of the neighboring chic districts are getting to know our community. And now they realize it's a nice place, very safe, and life is a lot cheaper. We also have a vibrant cultural scene and nightlife, and the people are really welcoming. And that's true of all the favelas.
So all these new residents have contributed to the neighborhood by bringing in not only culture,
yes, things have improved financially. It's an opportunity for us to increase our incomes. I have 2 houses a bit higher up, which I rent out. Before I charged 600 reals a month, but now I charge 1,000. That gives me more spending power, and there are a lot of us benefiting from that.
Do you think there will come a time when the original residents of Vidigal won't be able to afford to live here?
With the rise in the cost of living, part of the population already feels they have to leave the community they grew up in. They're being forced to move because they can no longer afford to meet their needs. When people who were born and raised here are forced to leave, the community loses part of its identity, its origins, its roots. This is the negative side of this new social mix.
Vidigal is one favela which is enjoying its opening up, but it means excluding its poorer inhabitants. Is this gentrification the ultimate price to pay for the development of the favelas? Personally, I don't think so. There are alternative models. I returned to Providencia, whose community spirit really left its mark on me. Mauricio has invited me to a barbecue on the roof of the Yellow House, a chance for me to spend a little more time with Giselle and the other residents of the neighborhood. Thank you so much for your hospitality. When I see all the energy and intelligence you put into Providencia, I tell myself that the favelas still have plenty of surprises up their sleeve. The inhabitants of the favelas have many things to teach us. Confined to the hillsides of a city that didn't want them, and left to their own devices with no real support, they have constructed places that are full of life, sources of a multiracial culture, extremely inventive, and an integral part of Rio's identity. I simply hope that the favelas will not become a picture postcard memory and that all residents of Rio will be able to benefit from the huge potential of these dynamic neighborhoods. Oh, there's a swimming pool. Awesome. I'm driving along a deserted track, 3,700 meters above sea level, in the Bolivian Altiplano. I'm on my way to Chipaya territory, a day's drive from La Paz, the capital. Over 2,500 years old, this indigenous community is the oldest in the Altiplano. Following numerous conflicts with other Indians, the Chipayas were forced to live self-sufficiently on the shores of an old salt lake, not far from Lake Pupo. The salt poisons their land, and yet they have stayed there. They have managed to harness this hostile environment thanks to a remarkable water management system and architecture adapted to the rigors of the Altiplano's arid climate. I want to find out more about the techniques which enable the Chipayas to make such intelligent use of their territory's limited resources. I reach Santa Ana de Chipaya, home to the 2,000-strong Chipaya community. There's a town hall, a school, and a few stores, but the village seems eerily deserted. Elias is waiting for me at home. Elias!
Yes? How are you? Welcome, my brother Philippe.
Thank you.
Welcome to the village of Chipaya. This is my home.
I saw in the village that many of the houses are built with these dried earth bricks.
Yes, this house is made of adobe with a mold. I can show you.
Please.
Here you go. They're like this. These were left over. That house is another model.
Yes, it's quite different. How was it made?
I'll show you the material. I have some here.
They're slabs of sod.
That's right. We cut them out of the ground. Look, on the other side, you can still see the tufts of grass.
Oh, yes, you can.
You should always choose pieces like this so that it's nice and sturdy. There should be roots in it. We use these to make walls for houses, like that one over there.
That one there.
Yes.
When I walked through the village, there weren't many people around.
It's normal you didn't see anyone. They're all in the fields.
I see.
We're not living here right now because school is still out. The parents are still in the fields.
So you split your time between homes?
That's right, Philippe. We Chipayas have several homes. One in the village, and those next to the fields, where we live when we're tending to our cattle, sowing, and harvesting. If you'd like to know more, I'll take you to my fields. Ready?
Let's go.
It's far. We'll get there faster by bike.
Okay, I'll just take my coat off. You're taking this bike?
Yes.
I'll take this one. Great, let's go.
Are you ready? Follow me. Be careful.
The Chipaya's space is structured by this tradition of living in several places at once. The village of Santa Ana, the administrative center, is in the middle of their 1,000 square kilometer territory. Dotted around it are the campos, or tiny hamlets, devoted exclusively to work in the fields and tending livestock. This separation of spaces and functions explains why mobility is at the heart of the Chipaya's way of life. More than living in the village, they inhabit a vast territory which they're constantly roaming. It takes over an hour to reach Elias's campo, across these vast and magnificent plains.
Here we go, Philippe. We've reached my camp. And that's my family.
Hello.
My wife, my daughter,
How are you?
Good, thank you. Hello.
and my sons.
Hello. How are you?
There, that's my camp.
When you come here with your family, what do you do exactly?
It's the rainy season right now, so we're mainly looking after the livestock. We have sheep.
There?
Yep, over there. We do other things when it isn't raining. We prepare the land for sowing quinoa.
Right.
At other times of the year, we're somewhere else.
Does that mean that you have other homes elsewhere?
Yes, I have 2 other camps. Right now, one is flooded and the other has been sown. That's why we're here. We can't stay in one place.
The shape of these houses is quite astonishing. Very even cones.
Yes, this type of house is called a putuku. It's conical, so that the wind can blow through it quickly. If the houses were square, the wind would buffet them and blow around them. With this cone shape, the wind doesn't stop. These are our sleeping quarters.
Okay. Right, and how many of you sleep in here?
The whole family.
This wall is very thick. Great protection from the wind.
Absolutely. To make it strong, the bottom is a bit wider and it thins out as it rises. If it was the same thickness all the way up to the top, with the weight, the house would collapse. That's the kitchen.
All right.
It's where my wife makes all our meals. Have a look. It's fully equipped.
Okay. Watching Elias and his family, I understand better why they're so attached to their putukus. These small, conical huts perfectly symbolize the idea of a protective shelter and home. A place enabling the whole family to get together and stick together. There are putukus like this all around us.
Yes, you can see there are several putukus. They're our neighbors.
But does each family set up camp wherever they like?
The land isn't divided. We live as a community. That's why everyone shares the work.
I see.
Everything's communal.
Community living.
Exactly. That's our life.
Among the Chipayas, spatial and social organization are inseparable. Their territory is divided into 4 aylus, or communities. All the members of an aylu are under the authority of a chief, and they help each other daily. Ilias introduces me to Don Sebastian, who has to finish building a putuku, a job he cannot do on his own, and for which he has enlisted other members of his aylu. Before starting construction, the Chipayas perform a ritual associated with the cult of Pachamama, Mother Earth, to thank her for the resources she provides.
How are you, Don Sebastian?
Hello.
Are you well?
Fine, fine.
This is Philippe.
Hello.
Hello, Philippe.
Hello.
And there's the foreman, Dionisio.
We're building a putuku. That one's collapsed. We have to build a new one.
You're halfway there already.
Yes, this soil is dry now,
Yes?
so we can add damp earth to finish it off.
Okay.
As the soil is already dry, it's hard. If it were still damp, the house would fall down. That's our method for building putukus.
Can we help you?
Yes, of course.
Okay. What can I do?
You can go fetch the slabs.
All right, there?
Yes.
Shall I put it here?
That's it.
How long does it take to build a putuku?
1 day.
Right. There's no binder, is there? The slabs of sod are just laid on top of each other.
Yes, we don't use cement because there are no stones here. To make it long-lasting, you have to use drier soil.
And how long does a putuku last? How long does it stay standing?
A putuku can last 10 to 15 years.
Really?
Yes.
So it's really sturdy.
Yes, it lasts a long time.
Do you always build the putukus as a group?
Yes, because the foreman has to stay up there. He can't come down.
Yes.
So we pass him the slabs and he lays them. We can go fetch more.
Okay, let's go. Given how heavy these sod slabs are, it's no wonder the putuku is solid.
Yes, they're very heavy.
They weigh a ton.
And hard on your back.
Yes, it's backbreaking. A wheelbarrow, great. What a good idea.
Here's the last one.
That's the last slab. It's beautiful, huh?
Thank you for your help.
A few coca leaves inside.
To make it last.
Yes, 10 years.
I'll remember how you helped us, my French brother.
It's going to last 10 years for sure. These moments spent with the Chipayas make me realize how much they love living on these barren, windswept plains, as if exposing themselves to the rigors of the climate brought them closer to the natural world they revere. The Chipayas' land is poisoned by salt. To treat it, they must wait for the rainy season, which runs from November through March when the area's only river bursts its banks. This is when they practice the technique of lameo, a method unique to them for diverting and harnessing. It enables the Chipayas to clean and desalinate the soil, and also deposits a fine layer of silt on it to fertilize the soil. Without this skill, that they have mastered since the 16th century, the Chipayas would have no agriculture to speak of, and they'd be forced to live elsewhere. Alonso is a member of another Ailu. He's supervising the work for his community today. Hello. The champa, a simple slab of sod cut out of the ground and left in its natural state, is the root of both their architecture and their farming techniques. This direct use of nature is one of the keys to their survival. Right, this one. Okay.
Let's put a lot here.
Alonso, why is it important to do this work?
It's important because the problem with the land here is salt. We call the work we're doing today lameo. That is, we're creating a new fertile plot of land on this side. At this time of year, the water flowing through here is murky. It's full of rich and fertile soil. We're building a dam so this fresh soil stays here. We keep the water that arrives full of clay and will ensure a good harvest. Then we can sow quinoa, cañaúa, potatoes. No other communities or peoples work in this way. We are the only ones to use this technique. The other methods with machines don't work. Only our method yields results. That's why we're known as Casogni, people of the water. We live off the water. If there was no water, the Chipayas wouldn't exist.
Listening to Alonso, I realize the lameo is much more than a technique passed on from one generation to the next. It's an authentic memory of the water which the Chipayas have incorporated into everything they do. A very ancient recollection of their life on this dead lake, which reminds them why they are still, and despite everything, the people of the lake. The Chipayas' ability to adapt to this hostile environment and exploit its scarce resources fascinates me. Where does their determination to live here come from? Ramiro Molina, a Bolivian anthropologist specializing in the Andes, tells me more about the Chipayas' attachment to their territory.
The Chipayas come from an ethnic group called the Urus. The Urus settled pretty much all over the Bolivian altiplano. And today it's one of the oldest cultures in the world.
The environment has become quite hostile. Why do the Chipayas continue to live here?
The fact is, this is an area where agricultural production is low. So the Urus' identity originates in their efforts to adapt to this environment. At the same time as taming their environment, they express themselves as individuals through a family, a culture. They live in harmony with nature. For them, home isn't just four walls and a roof, but the environment all around them.
When I see the way the Chipayas work the ground, it makes me realize that where nature has the least to give, paradoxically, that is where people respect it the most.
Yes, that is true. And it's because the Urus managed to adapt to their environment that they were able to introduce a sustainable production system. They do not destroy nature. Also, the Urus have identified very strongly with water since ancient times. It's the source of life. And the myths about their origins are linked to the relationship between water, the sun, and the earth. This interdependence and this way of adapting to the environment have enabled them to survive till now.
On the arid land of the Altiplano, in this dry, cool climate, the finest example of how the Chipayas have adapted to their environment is the cultivation of quinoa. It's their staple food. Elias is proud to show me his Ailu's cultivated plots. It's big. It's beautiful here.
As you can see, for now, the quinoa is still green. It needs to ripen. The crop will be ready late April, early May. Look at this plant. It has finished flowering. Look at its small seeds. See? Look.
Right. The seeds. It's tiny.
It isn't ripe yet. See? There's milk coming out of it.
Ah, yes.
It needs a little bit longer. If the weather stays like this, with a bit of rain, the harvest will be good.
Here in the Altiplano, the land is really barren. And I find it incredible you've managed to grow these fields of quinoa.
You always need to have faith, to believe that you will succeed. Because look around you. The mountains are far away. There's only pampa here, so there's nothing to stop the wind. Sometimes we get frost or hail, which can damage the quinoa too. So it's a long-term endeavor.
And without this quinoa crop, you couldn't survive here.
Right. Our survival depends upon it. Of course, we have our livestock too, sheep, llamas, but that's secondary. The most important is this crop. It's what enables us to cover the children's expenses, like school.
You Chipayas live on land that's pretty much poisoned by salt. And yet you still live here.
My father and mother brought me into the world here, on this land. Sometimes I ask myself, why in this pampa? But the fact is, I love the land where I was born. I'm used to it. It's my life. What else could I possibly do? My brother Philippe, we're going to eat now.
Really? Ah, great. Excellent. I'm hungry too. Thanks.
Sit there.
Here? Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is pizzara. It's quinoa with cheese.
Ah, did you make this cheese yourselves?
Yes, we make cheese with our used milk.
It's good. It's tasty for sure. Do you like splitting your time between here and the village?
I prefer being in the fields. It's more fun, there's more space, and I like that.
But can you imagine living in just one home when you're older?
I've never thought about living in one spot. I'm used to living in 2 or 3 different places and moving between homes.
So what is different about living here in the Putukus?
In the countryside, we have a lot of fun. Life is much lighter. In the village, I feel hemmed in. Here we can see really far. I grew up in the Putukus too. They're nice and warm, and I really like it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to share this meal with you. It was great.
I'm so happy, so pleased you came to visit my camp and meet my family. My friend Philippe.
Are you playing with the doggy? Playing with the dog? On leaving the Chipayas, I think I've understood why they continue to live on this land scorched by the sun and salt, where hardly anything grows. It isn't simply because they found a place of their own here after centuries of conflict with other Indians. It's first and foremost because they've learned to love their land by tending to it, to see in something fragile and vulnerable the most precious of treasures. Just like their community lost in the immensity of the Andean plains.